Hey, greetings, Eastern Michigan family and friends. My name is Taquanda Johnson. I serve as the social media strategist here at Eastern Michigan University, and we are excited to bring back our Black History Live 365. We are celebrating Black History 365 days of the year, and I'm excited to have our interview series this year. And if you have not been watching, you have been missing all the great conversations that have taken place throughout this month. So make sure that you go back on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook page, wherever you're watching from, to catch the replay of some of our candid conversations about Black history and how each person is paving the way in creating legacy. Today, I have the honor. It just seems like I'm bringing on my friends this year, but I have the honor of bringing on Marnese Jackson. She is an alum of Eastern Michigan University. I'm going to share a little bit about her bio a little bit later, so we'll get a chance to know her just a little bit more in depth. But everybody understands. Listen, today we are talking about Black history. So please refrain from asking any questions that are not relevant to today's topic. And if you have any questions, we want to make sure that we get those questions. So if your question is about today's topic and are specific to Marnese or something that's brought up in the conversation, we want to make sure that you are hitting up the comment box, whether you're watching from Facebook or Twitter, as well as YouTube. We want your comments. We want your questions throughout this entire conversation. Also, if your questions are not relevant to today's conversation, we're going to ask that you contact us in our direct message in our inbox or shoot us an email at social_media@emich.edu, and we will be able to answer your question just a little bit later. And if you are catching the replay and you have a burning question, go ahead and hit the comment box or shoot us an email. We'll make sure that we get it to our guest today. So without further ado, I want to introduce my good friend, Marnese Jackson. She is, again, an EMU alum. Marnese is an environmental and climate justice advocate. She is a trainer and an educator from Pontiac, Michigan, where she's the mother of two children, London and Dawson. Also, Marnese is the co-director of the Midwest Building Decarbonization Coalition. So we'll learn a little bit about that a little bit later, where they inspire and educate Midwesterners to end new installations of fossil fuel equipment in residential and commercial buildings by 2030. Marnese is extremely on the forefront of this cause, as well as was previously the Mothers Out Front in December 2018 as a frontline organizing program manager. She is the former Midwest and Great Plains States regional organizer for the NAACP Environment and Climate Justice Program. She was also the Weatherization coordinator for Oakland Livingston Human Services Agency and energy outreach specialist for Southeastern Michigan Regional Energy Office. She holds a Bachelor of Science from Eastern Michigan University with an interdisciplinary focus on public relations, communications, journalism, and African American studies. She also holds a master's degree from Marygrove College in social justice, specifically specializing in environmental, economic, and racial justice. She is a board member of the U.S. Climate Action Network, the East Michigan Environmental Action Council, the Environmental and Climate Justice Chairman for the NAACP North Oakland County branch, and her state and local social action chairman for Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. Marnese is the 2020 Michigan Clean Energy Leaders Cohort member, and she is also cohort member for 350.org. So we'll learn a little bit more about that a little bit later. And she also is appointed member for the State of Michigan Council on Climate Solutions. Without further ado, meet my friend, Marnese Jackson. Hey!
How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you for agreeing to join us today. I know you are a very busy woman and you are always on the move. You have been like that since we were in undergrad at Eastern, but I wanted to make sure that everybody knew exactly how dope you were and how you are paving the way and creating Black history in your areas. So we're going to let them in on how we live life.
Thank you for having me, Quan, and thanks. So I call her Quan, okay?
Yes, she
That's
does. That's
so
how you know it's a real friend.
right. I'm like Taquanda, okay. No. So thanks for having me. It's so awesome to be back with someone from EMU, and I can't wait to see you at homecoming again.
Yes,
We have a great
absolutely.
time.
Yes, we do. So I want to get all into what you're doing. I read your bio and, we think that's great, but I like to hear from each and every person about what they are doing and for them to tell our viewers just a little bit about themselves. So go ahead.
Well, thank you so much for reading that long bio. I gotta find I gotta find a way to shorten that. But besides all of the environmental training and activism advocacy work that I do, I'm a mom of two. My daughter is 13, London, and my son Dawson, he is 9. And so I'm a mom before anything. And now that they're back in school, I'm starting to do more work with them in regards to in class work because I'm a mom. Okay. So I do the
Right.
mommy thing. And so I'm excited that London is doing more stuff with theater and Dawson, he wants to do more things with sports. So I'm that mom. So you gotta have a balance outside of the work that you do. Um
Absolutely.
so I am also, I don't even want to focus on all the work that I do because I know we're gonna get to it, but honestly, I am just a person. Okay, people don't think that I have a lazy day. Okay, but I
Listen,
do.
I don't think you have a lazy day, and we've known each other since what 2000. So it's like
Right.
I like literally like I as long as I've known you, I'm like she is always on the move. They talk about me being on the move. Right? These be on the move just as much as just
And
as
so
much as me.
yeah, yeah. And so I am always on the move. However, I am intentional about making sure I get my time and my
Mm-hmm.
naps. Okay. And I love to travel. I'm cutting down this year and I'm gonna do it more quarterly versus every other week.
Okay.
But you know what? I can't even say that because April, I'm looking at my work travel schedule. I'm like, oh Lord, I'm about to be out here again. But I like to travel and see new things, get outside of Michigan and explore. I'm an adventurer. So outside of trying to save the environment, Black people, I like to live life and meet new people, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that's the way to solving all these issues around racism is to connect with people and have just the conversations that we're afraid to have, right?
Right.
Because we're humans, and how dare us start talking about race because that opens up a whole different door of judgment that a lot
Mm-hmm.
of us is not ready or can take on, right? And so that's my role in this movement to not make people feel comfortable, but feel open enough to just talk about these hard conversations. So,
Right.
right.
Absolutely. So I want to go into now, like talking a little bit about. So we know that you got your bachelor's from Eastern
Mhm.
and your master's from Mary Girl. So talk to us a little bit about why you decided to go into this field that you're in, and tell us a little bit about that because there might be some people out there that are watching that are just like environmental and climate justice, like what's that, or they don't have a clear understanding, or maybe they just don't realize,
Right.
like, oh, that's what that is, like, oh,
Right.
okay, there's a formal name, to that. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Thanks so much, Quan. And no, I did not go to school to save the environment and the polar bears and the people who have lead in their water and all this polluting air and stuff that we ingest and we don't even know it. Um, but I care about Black people, and
Yeah.
so that's where the African American Studies scope of work comes from. And I got into the work not even knowing that environmental and climate justice was a thing when I helped spearhead a fundraiser. It was a showcase for Hurricane Katrina that happened in 2005. And I remember bringing a lot of different groups together so we can collect funds for hurricane victims, right? And Hurricane Katrina down in New Orleans. And so at that point, I didn't know that it was like coined a term, right? But I knew that I had family and I had friends down there and they were Black, right?
Yeah.
And of course, at the time we had George Bush. Am I allowed to call people out on this? Just let me know. You can let me know, Marnese. No, we not there today. Just let me know. I'll keep it PG, but it's like at the time, our administration, okay, 2005, you guys can go back. They weren't showing up, right? And so the advocacy part is, of course, to figure out what I can do in my lane. So that fundraiser happened, you know, with a lot of different Black organizations at Eastern. Fast forward, I didn't even know that I really wanted to do this, right? I just wanted to do work in the community, advance the community that I'm in here in Pontiac, right? There's a lot of poverty, low income to moderate income, a lot of single parents, men and women. And I just wanted to move us up, right? However, my first job out of Eastern was at OLSA, Oakland Livingston Human Service Agency, right? You take the first job you can get because, of course, we were going through that recession.
We were. Yep.
I took the first job and I had London on the way. You know, I was a single mom. And so I was doing weatherization coordinating at that time. So related to the environmental field, that's focused on getting fossil fuels out your home. That's anything from fossil fuels is like gas and oil. Those are the main two that we kind of use right now. But weatherizing your home is pretty much to save on your utility bills and make sure that your house is efficient, right? So I was doing that. And that's related to the environmental field because the polluting facilities that produce the oil and gas are the same people that give us our lights and our heat, DTE and consumers. Okay.
Right.
Just a little bit of education, advocacy. So the way we can save on that, you know, is of course to get clean energy, solar, wind, geothermal, those type of things. But that's not accessible to Black people, right? So weatherizing your home is accessible, right? So you can save on these utility rates, right? Now it's very important because we have high utility rates right now. If you have a consumer's bill right now, I mean, it's going up. And so fast forward, I got another job at the Southeast Regional Energy Office doing the same thing, but on the regional level. Not knowing that, okay, I actually love this stuff because I like science too. But I experienced a utility injustice, right? My bill on working at the job I had, they paid decent. However, I was in that low to moderate income range where it's like, you can't really afford your bills. You robbing Peter to pay Paul, that type of situation, especially if you have like the basic stuff like a car note, insurance. You can't get food assistance or anything just to help you make ends meet, right? So, but you just like, oh my goodness, I can't even put gas in my car or I can't afford the childcare. So I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul. And I experienced a utility injustice in the dead of winter. So it's really against a law to cut off your lights in the dead of winter. And some
people don't know that. So like that is so good to bring up. Like some individuals don't know that right there is against the law.
And so, especially when you have kids. So me being resourceful, knowing people working at the Community Action Agency, I got my lights cut back on because of the light heat funds, the federal dollars that come on to get you access to cut your lights back on. Like I was going through it and I'm, you know, this is my story. And this is how I tell people, like, I get it. Like this happened, but you understand the cost. It's not that you don't want to pay your utility bill. You just can't afford it. Right. And that's during that time we had that polar vortex too. When it was I remember cold outside. And so I got to pay, but then I started to get more involved in that movement. I did not know utility justice was a whole thing until I went to graduate school and people were like, okay, so this is a movement. And I got connected with some environmental organizers and energy justice organizers in Detroit. And they told me the whole landscape of utility companies, i.e. DTE and consumers, and how this is a big monopoly, right? And they don't
Wow.
want to switch to clean energy, solar, geothermal energy efficiency, because it's going to hurt their bottom line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their dollars, right? And
Yeah.
so Black people, low income, brown, indigenous people, we bear the brunt of these utility costs. And by the way, we spend 40% of our money on utility rates, right? It's
Wow.
just, it's like more of a cost issue more than anything. So I decided to focus on this sector because, of course, I experienced it, and it became a
Mm-hmm.
passion because I started to connect with a lot of people in the movement, and then also advocates. In my NAACP role, when I was working there, I met so many people who have experienced this small thing of getting your lights cut off in the
Right.
dead of winter.
In the dead of
And
winter.
and nobody wants to talk about it because, of course, it's a prideful thing. Oh my gosh, I should have had this together. I should have been
Right.
able to do this. I should have been able to.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I went through it, but I'm sitting here like, there's no possible way. Like, got a financial advisor. Heck, my own brother is a financial person. Like, what am I doing wrong here? What am I doing
Mm-hmm.
wrong here? And so, just like my story, I started to connect with other people who was robbing Peter to pay Paul. And then with NAACP, they have this report called Lights Out in the Cold to talk about utility justice shut off and how this is also contributed to one, climate change because of the
Right.
emissions that's going in the air, and
Mm-hmm.
then how communities of color are located centrally near a power plant. So if you go down I-75 and you see the River Rouge plant, you smell all those emissions.
You
That's coming,
do. You
right.
do.
That's
Absolutely.
contributing to climate change and environmental injustices, right? Because if you notice, if you do some research, people who live in Southwest Detroit, 48217, they made that is a climate, that is a cancer cluster, excuse me, because you have the
Mm.
Marathon plant right there, and then off Schaefer, and then you have 75 of all the Rouge plants. So they're ingesting those emissions. And then, most likely they may
Wow.
have cancer running in their families. So I
Mm-hmm.
became very interested with another reason because I do have family in that area, and
Mm-hmm.
I love Black people. Like, these are our people. So
Yes.
this is like,
Absolutely.
it became a thing. So
That is so cool. Like it's amazing how even through life, right? Like we sit up there and we think like, okay, hey, you know what? Like the smallest things turn into huge passions and then become even larger as far as like life callings, right? And being
mhm.
able to educate those even within that look like us, or um, uh, those folks who are even some people who don't look like us, right? Like they never take into account. Like as soon as you mentioned, going up 75, I'm like, yes, like you can, you cannot like not smell that when you're going that way. Like you cannot not see the Marathon gas station, Marathon like right on the right, but yeah, you just can't not know that right there is
It's
dealing.
just
And
not
people
right.
don't think, yeah, and folks don't think about like the climate and what that is and what that looks like even for those who are staying down there.
Mhm.
So I want to talk a little bit about like Black history, right? So we talk about how like we're here for Black folks, but as I say, Black history is American history. Um, so tell us a little bit about what Black history means to you and the importance of this particular month.
So for me, Black History Month is not just a month. Okay, it's 365 days. I
365
I
days.
I tell my kids, like, look, Black History Month is every day. This is the tokenized colonization month that they gave us. I'm just playing. Let me stop. Uh, okay, fine. But to me, it means that it's an opportunity to reflect on what our ancestors paid for us. They did so much, outside of advocating for voting rights, getting us out of the enslavement, everything they have done. For me, it's an opportunity just to reflect, but then also to reshape how I go about the advocacy work, because there's so many layers to the work our ancestors have done. So Black History Month, I take time to just sit and think, like, what's my next steps to, one, build the Black community. Like, what's my role? You know, I know I do the environmental justice work. That's what I do. That's what I love. That's my passion. However, what's the next step to get us out of
Further. Yeah.
out of this cycle, right? And then of how people may see us as Black people, right?
That's good.
I always try to tell people even white people, what is something awesome you think about Black people, or what are those false narratives that you have heard and that it got dispelled after you met Black people? Because I do work with a lot of white people. And so to me, it's a time to learn, not make excuses. And I don't like to blame the white man. I try to get away from that because, yes, it's a part of it, right? It's a part of in our DNA to blame things on the white man. And it is quite honestly, white supremacy culture, the ideology. However, for me, Black History Month, I try to move away from that ideology because I don't want anybody to have that much power and control over me and how I move through life, right? Yes, I know the culture is there. I know the ideology is there. I know there's systematic and institutional oppression. My goal in life is to make sure that Black people can navigate these different systems and move away from that thinking. Because to me, I think our history, our ancestors have laid the framework for us, right?
Yes.
They have provided a lot of the solutions, whether they were good or bad, we can learn from them. And so for me, Black History Month is just a time of reflection and how to move forward and build, that generational wealth for us, because honestly, that's the next step, for Black people. So
I most definitely agree with that. I think a lot of times, like you mentioned, yes, things have happened, and yes, there are systematic issues, but just focusing on just that aspect of the change that has been made, and most importantly, like you mentioned, looking at, okay, how can I move this forward? What can I do in my everyday life, to push that, and to push our people forward, and also affect those who are around us. I love the fact that you mentioned having those hard conversations with individuals that may have never had those conversations before, or they didn't feel comfortable, right? Let's just be honest, there are some folks that's just oh, well, I never thought about that. And I've been in situations like that where there have been individuals where they're just oh, I never thought about that, or I didn't have anybody where I felt comfortable enough, to even bring to bring X, Y, and Z up so that I can have an understanding, of those things. And that's just real, and it's out, it's most definitely out there, and we deal with it day in and day out. So if you are watching our live, welcome. If you are just catching on, this is EMU Black History 365, and I am here with our guest, Marnese Jackson. So Marnese, tell us a little bit about I know we talked a little bit about your work in advocacy, and even with the NAACP, and with the Midwest Building Coalition. Tell us a little bit about how you feel like you're paving the way, and who paved the way for you to get you to the point where you are today.
Well, I'll start with who paved the way, and I have to definitely, and I see my Aunt Ida this morning. My Aunt Ida, my mom, and my band director, Mr. Sykes. They really actually instill into me about Black culture, and that it's okay to be Black, right? My Aunt Ida exposed me to Black theater. Of course, in my family, we listened to so much good music, from Bob Marley to the Stylistics to Earth, Wind, Fire, everybody, right? So just owning that it's awesome to be Black. And when Mr. Sykes, he brought to me the history behind everything, right?
That's good.
And of course, and then my mother, she always used to say, "Power to the people." Okay, power to the people, right?
Right.
What does that really mean, right? But just the little things that she used to say in the exposure really got me into thinking, I love being Black. I didn't make things colorism or texturism or anything that Black people experience, my problem, right? I made it like if somebody came at me like with certain like that, that's your problem. You got to deal with, right? If I want to wear my fro out, or if I want to wear a straight, kinky, whatever, I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do Marnese, right? If you have a problem with my skin complexion, that's your problem, okay? All Black is beautiful, right? And so for me, just those three individuals, I love you, I appreciate it, right? But if you want to think about people who also paved the way, my teachings, who I constantly like read about, I always go to our ancestors like Assata Shakur, right? The whole revolutionary part of her, and she does a lot of food justice work as well. I think about the Black Panthers. Even though, you know, they had different ways of executing that a lot of people may not agree with, I definitely love the foundation. I mean, they were asking for pretty much or demanding reparations and taking community ownership into their hands, right? So I definitely love the foundation of teachers, and we can all take something away from that, right? I love, if you want to go to our African brothers and sisters, I love Stephen Biko. I like, of course, with Black music, because we all need something to help us heal from the trauma. I always go to Earth, Wind, and Fire because they take us to a place, for me, Black futurism.
That's
right?
good. Yeah.
So I always listen to them because it takes me to a place of like, I see us in the future doing awesome stuff where we're not oppressed, you know? So I think about those people. And so right now, I'm paving the way just to be an educator, be a trainer on these different things people don't want to talk about, are hard to talk about, right? One connection, one conversation can lead to a different thought process. So yes, I'm in the environmental building decarbonization. Yes, poor indoor air quality impacts African and Latinos the most, right? Especially here in these cold climates in the Midwest region. I think me bringing people to the table, because I'm a connector, I'm a relator, right? I can talk to people. Bringing people to this coalition and the work that I do so they can advocate for themselves and stand up for themselves. That's what I'm bringing to the table as far as advancing, you know, advocacy, our Black community, because everybody has a role, right? In this movement. Everybody has a role. This is my role, okay? To get people to the next part.
I love it. And I think that's like really important, right? Like us, each person figuring out what your role is, and every person realizing that they have a role. So whether you're Black, whether you're white, whether you're Latina, you know, like whatever your race is, you have a role in this thing about paving the way and pushing even Black history, even though you may not feel like, oh, well, that's not my history, but no, it's a part of your history because it's American history. So you have a way of paving it too. And I love the fact that you mentioned that. So I want to talk about like incoming students, right? Because we were once incoming students here at Eastern, and there may be some incoming students who are watching this live, or even some parents or some current students. How do you feel like, what was like your experience as far as being an incoming student at Eastern, and what would you share with your younger self?
Wow. So I was a transfer student coming to Eastern. I did my first year at Oakland University, and I transferred because of the sportsman program, right? But I switched over because I think that's when I found my advocacy voice, right? You have to listen to your voice and of where you're going, right? Parents always say, why you change your major to something, so you don't know what you're going to do? Because clearly I did not know what I was going to do. I just kind of fell into what I was going to do. However, sometimes it may be a great idea, not at the moment, right? Because we want our kids to have a job so they won't have to come back home.
Yes.
I know it is. I'm telling London the same thing, girl. But I think for students, I would say definitely stay involved. Get to know people in different organizations. If there's something that's not there, start your own, right? And getting involved with the student government and the faculty is very important because you have to learn how to advocate for yourself. I don't care outside of school. You're going to have to learn how to advocate for yourself on the job. If you want that raise, right? If you want to get that internship, you have to, be able to do that. So my advice is, of course, to get to know people because, Quan, like, hey,
listen, that's
like,
how we do.
It's like I tell people you have to really get out your own bubble and get to know people who are different than you are, right? Because you can always meet a new friend, and I think life is about building good relationships. Also, just stay involved. I really appreciated Eastern's it was accessible to get involved with things, right? I think Eastern was very family oriented. So take advantage. Well, during the time when we were there. I don't know how it is now.
It still is. I feel like it still is. Okay. I feel like everybody, that's one of the joys of being back, as I like to say, like being able to see that same family vibe that we had and that we were able to receive from faculty, from staff, from our students, like, as students, like all of that we received, like you could still receive it. But like you mentioned, it's all about being open, right? And being open and tapping in, but it's there.
Yeah, even starting your residence hall. I mean,
yes.
Oh my goodness, I had the best time in residence hall. Oh my goodness. It was, and Eastern was the party school back then too. So, I mean, if you like to party, it was always a place to go, but and that's a good way to meet people, right? I was so involved from refereeing sports to, of course, Greek life, Black Greek life, to student government, to just all these organizations. And I felt like it helped me to define what type of advocate I am now. So it's not hard for me to connect with anybody.
I love that. I love that. So as we wrap up today's conversation, how do you feel like we can learn from Eastern's past to embrace the future? We've personally seen, at hand, things that have transpired even prior to us, being at Eastern, as far as racial injustice is concerned, and even small as advocating for yourself in in a classroom setting or whatever the case may be. How do you feel like what could we do in order to learn from the past to embrace the future?
Well, definitely you have to of course use your resources and get involved with like faculty. I mean, I remember Eastern having a rich Black faculty. It didn't even have to be in the African American Studies program, but also the faculty in general. You have to really build those relationships, but then also Eastern does have a rich history of producing a lot of great athletes. A lot of people you see on TV and just doing awesome work here in, Michigan and beyond. So I would say just make sure that you really take advantage of the resources Eastern provides. I would say because especially when I was there, I felt that I could accomplish anything, right? Whether it's getting help with writing on a paper or just learning how to do different things. Like when I was in the sports medicine, for example, program, I really learned how to, of course, expand on the athletic training parts of it. And they were really hands-on with that, right? I just couldn't make it past the kinesiology class. I just couldn't make it past it. And I found my advocacy voice. So I would say,
but you found exactly what you were supposed to do, so that there's nothing wrong with that at all.
And it don't take away that I still love sports, right?
Right.
And if
Right.
something happens with the kids, I can, wrap them up and, do what they,
Right.
go get some ice. But I would say definitely use the resources. And if it's not there, you have to advocate for it. I think Eastern will teach you how to advocate for yourself, because no place is perfect. You have to make your university is your home. I mean, because you're
That's
paying
good.
for it, right?
Yeah.
You're paying for it. Your parents paying for it with your time, your money, and you have to really just get out and meet people. I mean, I think that's just the key part. And Ypsilanti, and with Ann Arbor down the block, down the road, you need to get outside of also Ipsy, but also explore Ipsy. I love Ypsilanti. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, there's some great things in Ypsilanti, and folks don't realize it till after you've literally been there, and you're just like, "Oh, that's there? I didn't know that was there." Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
you have to explore. You have to really explore Ypsilanti. Then go down the block or down the road. Excuse me, I keep saying the block, but it seemed like a block.
It does seem like a block. It does seem like a block. It literally
I'm
is. That's
like,
what it feels
Ann
like.
Arbor is right there. Go down there
Right.
and explore Ann Arbor, meet some
Mm-hmm.
friends, and come back, and you have to make Eastern what it is. I mean, it's
That's
only what you
good.
can make it. So
Mm-hmm. That is good. Well, thank you, Marnese, for joining us today. We had quite a few, viewers.
thank you.
Kamal, our good friend Kamal joined on. So thanks, Kamal, for joining on.
Hi,
And again,
Kamal.
if anyone has any questions, any comments, by all means, one, make sure that you're sharing this broadcast right now with all of your friends and your family. Also, two, make sure that you're commenting in the comment box. We can't wait. We'll be back again this Friday at 12 o'clock, where we will be remembering our very own Judy Sturgis Hill. We're excited about that. It's going to be some amazing panelists, some of her very dearest friends, as well as others who are also are not just her friends, but we're also students, here at Eastern. So we'll get a chance to honor and remember her legacy and how she paved the way in setting Black history on Eastern's campus. So make sure that you join us on Friday at 12 o'clock. Thank you so much for spending your lunch time with us. And again, we will see everyone on Friday. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.